During the late 20th century, the IOC gradually allowed professional competitors to take part in the Olympic Games. How do you account for this change of policy towards career athletes? We're Joe Destro, Connor Parker, and Ken Beckett, and we chose this topic as much of our sport management program focuses on MSOs, such as the IOC. So relating our cumulative knowledge and combining it with real-world examples seemed like a logical choice. The Olympics are the pinnacle of several amateur sports, and this year the world saw an example of certain professional athletes not being allowed to go to the Olympics as mandated by the league that they play in. There are numerous positive and negative aspects of professional athletes being allowed to compete in the Olympics for marketing reasons, and we will discuss those and why pro athletes have been allowed and not allowed to compete in the following Vodcast presentation.
The Olympic Games have been a competition involving the best athletic specimens on the planet ever since 64 AD in a conversation between Rodon and Tryphon, where a race was being talked about that happens once every 4 years. However, the Olympic Games have evolved since then and have taken on the title of the Modern Olympic Games, which was first introduced on April 6, 1896 in Athens, Greece. Although the best athletes were representing their region in the ancient Olympic Games in 64 AD, it wasn't until 1986 until professional athletes could compete at the Games. During the 1972 and 1976 Olympic Games, the IOC made a ruling to disallow any hockey players with a professional contract to participate at the Olympic Games. This caused plenty of uproar and led to Team Canada pulling out of both of these games. This caused a debate of whether the professional athletes should or should not be allowed to compete during the Olympic Games.
The Olympic motto is Citius, Altius, and Fortius, which is Latin for faster, higher, and stronger. The motto represents that this event is used to have athletes compete at a high standard versus the best around the world, as well as encouraging athletes to improve and get better through this event. Originally, competitors who got paid for playing their sports were banished from the Olympics and were not allowed to compete. An example is Jim Thorpe, who had his gold medals from 1912 taken away from him because he played semi-pro baseball during his college summers. In today's Olympics, athletes are paid now to participate in the Olympics through initiatives such as Own the Podium, B210, Athletes Canada's, and endorsements. This gives athletes more incentive to participate in the Olympics, as well as this shows how the Olympics had changed over time.
To understand the positives and negatives of allowing professionals to compete at the Olympic Games, you must first understand the difference between these two types of athletes. The definition of an amateur athlete, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is one who engages in a pursuit, study, science, or sport as a pastime rather than as a profession, while the definition of a professional athlete is having a particular profession as a permanent career, or engaged in by persons receiving financial return. From these definitions, we can come to the consensus that amateur athletes are unable to rely on their athletic ability to earn a livable income due to the fact that there can be no monetary gain from their athletic talents. From these definitions, we can also come to the consensus that professional athletes are receiving a financial gain through their athletic talent in some way, and they can focus on the sport as a full-time career. These financial benefits are likely coming from sport contracts that have been awarded to them by certain organizations that they represent. The International Olympic Committee used this criteria to ban players with professional league contracts from competing in the Olympic Games. This ruling was focused mainly on hockey events, meaning that any player in the National Hockey League was banned from competing during the Games. We will now share the interview we held with the head coach of Team Canada's 2018 men's hockey team, Willie Desjardins.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Desjardins. How are you?
I'm good, Joseph. How are you?
I'm doing great. This interview is going to deal with your time at the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympic Games as the head coach of Team Canada's men's hockey team.
Okay.
So my group and I are doing a study on the positives and negative effects of allowing professionals to compete in the Olympic Games. The first question I just wanted to ask you was overall, how was your experience at the Olympic Games in 2018?
It's really an incredible experience. I've had a chance to represent my country before with World Juniors, and I guess at the Spengler Cup as well.
Yep.
And it's unbelievable. Like there's two things I really love: hockey and I love Canada.
Yep.
And whenever you can combine both, it's amazing. And I guess the biggest thing to that is the Olympics. So it's something I always wanted to do, and never really thought I'd get the chance to do it, though, so it was a great experience.
I'm sure it was, yeah. Well, so we're going to get into the question that our assignment deals with, and it has to do with the fact that of course, the professional athletes from the NHL were not allowed to participate in the Olympic Games this past in 2018. I just want to have your opinion on if you believe the professional athletes from the NHL should have competed at the Olympic Games. Right?
Well, I can kind of give you a little bit of both sides. I think for a country and whenever you're competing for something, you always want your best athletes.
Exactly.
I think that's, I just think we take pride in our country, so we take pride in hockey, so we always want our best to compete in that. I think on the other hand, too, though, the Olympics, I think it was generally made for amateur athletes, and so I think that's pretty special as well. And I know a lot of the guys that I got to coach there were truly excited, and nobody that played pro hockey would love their country and their game more than these guys did.
Of course.
And, and I think they made lots of sacrifices to go do it. So I think there certainly is an argument for both.
Sure.
I think a lot of times the pro players have had lots of stuff. They have lots given to them, but these guys are taking their families over to Europe and all over the world to keep playing. So it was really a special time for them.
Yeah.
And, I think they did you wouldn't have. I've never seen guys so excited on the bench when we were in the bronze medal game we were going to win. Like I never have. Like these guys, I got guys that couldn't even think they were so excited. So
Yeah.
it was a great feeling to see these guys and how they reacted.
Of course, yeah. Well, so we were kind of talking about the same way, how there's like a positive and negative to the situation. So you kind of just touched on the points we made as well, and I just want to thank you very much for.
Be pretty common. I think lots of people would think it the same way. So
Yeah, for sure.
that's good though. So no, Joseph, that's good. I hope you enjoy your program and good luck.
Thank-
Call me at any time.
Oh,
Okay?
I appreciate it
Something
so much.
else? Okay.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Joseph.
Yep, have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
When professional athletes compete in the Olympics and in such high-profile team sports as hockey and basketball, major corporate chains such as McDonald's go from marketing the ideals of sport to the marketing of the athletes competing at the games. The individual athletes also get commercial and brand endorsement opportunities over other athletes in the games. This can be seen in many examples, some of which include McDonald's launching special athlete-centered promotions with professional athletes, such as the 1998 Team Canada men's hockey gold medal coins, the 2002 Team Canada hockey pucks, and the 2006 Team Canada jerseys, all with either the players' faces or names on them. Another example is the 1992 Dream Team gold medal meal with Dream Team cups. The company produced a flashy ad featuring such NBA superstars as Christian Laettner, Patrick Ewing, and Michael Jordan.
If you're hungry for the gold, you practice. If you're just hungry, you go to McDonald's.
Where, for a limited time, you can get a big, beefy triple cheeseburger.
For a big guy, like myself.
Big guy, Mikey. And when you team one up
With large fries and a large soft drink.
in a free USA Olympic Basketball Collector Cup, you've got yourself the gold medal meal.
What you want is what you get.
At McDonald's today.
Gold medal? It's in the bag.
Now we move on to the marketing of amateur Olympic athletes. Amateur athletes get more sponsorship opportunities when professional athletes are not involved in the Olympics, helping them brand and market themselves as well as get more money. An example would be if NHL players did attend the 2018 Olympics, that Sidney Crosby would have gotten shown on TV a lot more with advertisements and to support the Olympics. But without him, there are others who got opportunities, such as Tessa Verstew, who has got sponsorship deals with Nivea and Adidas. Olympic advertisements are very different with professional and amateur ads. When fans see their favorite player on TV or posted, they are more likely to pay attention to the advertisement. With amateur athletes, this is not the case, so companies in the Olympics have to find other ways to promote their product or service. An example is the difference between the McDonald's commercial, where the one you previously saw had Michael Jordan, and the one you're about to see does not have any professional athletes, but is to promote the Olympics through the way of sports and imagination.
Today's dreamers are tomorrow's Olympians.
In the lens of sports marketing, the more eyes that are watching an event means that the event has been more successful. In the case of the Olympic Games, there is a significant difference in viewership when there are professionals at the Olympic Games compared to when there are not, specifically in the ice hockey events. During the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympic Games, where professional athletes were competing, there were approximately 15 million viewers in Canada and 4.9 million viewers in the United States watching the men's ice hockey gold medal game. That equates to almost 20 million viewers in North America, and in the United States was not even competing for a gold medal. In comparison, during the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympic Games, there were only 2.9 million viewers in the US, down from the 4.9 million. Only 2.7 million Canadians watched the playoff game where Canada played the Czech Republic men's hockey team. Due to the NHL being populated by mostly Canadian and American players, it was difficult for these teams to compete at a high level, which meant that the countries who will watch the sport more intensely will be less interested in watching the games where competition is not to the standard of play that they are used to. The lack of skill level translated into teams reaching the gold medal game that would have never thought to have made it in years where the skill level was high, which makes it more fair for other countries to compete for a gold medal. With the spotlight being on athletes who are not usually known for being superstars in their sport, it translates into great exposure for the individuals, such as Chris Kelly, who was the captain of Team Canada men's hockey Olympic team and was rewarded with an NHL contract when the games concluded. This was also the case for Brian Gionta, who signed a one-year deal with the Boston Bruins after showing that his skill level was worthy enough to play in the NHL for another year. Tessa Virtue and Scott Moore were two amateur athletes representing Canada who embraced the spotlight and captured the eyes of all North Americans interested in the Olympics. The two were partnered during their performance of figure skating at the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games and were watched by approximately 4.3 million viewers in Canada and 18.2 million viewers in the United States during their gold medal skate. Now that the Olympics have concluded, Tessa and Scott have announced that they will evolve their career into the professional realm and have already taken on sponsorship deals from companies such as Nivea and Adidas, and have written a book titled Thank You Canada.
There are negative consequences from a marketing aspect of professional athletes competing in the Olympics. In any sport, injuries can occur. This happened during the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics when Team Canada forward John Tavares suffered a knee injury and was not only forced to miss the remainder of the games, but also the rest of his season with the New York Islanders. This was a negative for a team not to be able to market their superstar captain for the rest of the year. Injuries suffered by pro athletes provide ammunition to owners who oppose shutting down the season to send players to the Olympics. Fear of injuries is one of the concerns by anti-Olympics owners, and there have been more than a handful of those during the Games. Another marketing issue stemming from professional athletes competing in the Olympics is leagues being forced to shut their season down because their best players are off playing in the Games. Then, while their athletes are off competing in the Games, the leagues are not able to use pictures or video to promote their own players participating in the Olympics. The NHL has been allowed to capture its Olympic moments in words only, not in video or images. No highlights of Sidney Crosby's golden goal for Canada against the United States in Vancouver. No highlights of TJ Oshie's shootout heroics for the United States against Russia in Sochi. You name it, the NHL hasn't been able to show it. How does that help promote the league or grow the game? The NHL deemed the benefits of participation in the 2018 Olympics to be negligible, said Commissioner Gary Bettman when commenting on the Games in 2017. That doesn't mean that players don't want to go, however, and the league deciding not to go can cause tension between itself and the players or the Players Association. One player who openly expressed his frustration was Washington Capitals superstar Alex Ovechkin, who said in a 2017 statement that, quote, the Olympics are in his blood and that it sucks that we will not be there to play. Such unhappiness from the players and their union can make it difficult to negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement when the time comes, perhaps resulting in a lockout. That absence or break in hockey would also be a marketing, not to mention a PR nightmare as well.
Athletes at the Olympic Games. There are negatives that come along when amateurs are excluded from competition, such as less exposure, focusing on individual talent rather than the team aspect in the sport itself, as well as the fact that professional athletes may take away from the original Olympic model. With professional athletes in the Olympics, there are both positive and negatives that come from it, and I'm sure the debate will continue for a while to come. Thank you for listening.